So hello friends, and welcome to another session in which we will write together, fix some UX copy together. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get into this and do this. Hi, my name is Kat and I teach people about writing in tech, and on this channel you will find everything that you need to know about writing, telling a great story and making the world a better place with words. So if you care about all of that just as much as I do, make sure you hit subscribe and ring the bell. So welcome to this video, which is part of my new series in which we practice writing together, but which still doesn't have a name. So if you have some name suggestions for it, drop them in the comments. And other than that, let's start. As always in this series, keep in mind, again, we are looking at a real example from a real product, and most probably, in the age of AI, we never know, but most probably it was written by a real person. So let's always keep that in mind. Keep it respectful. The perspective here is we don't make bad things good. We make existing things better because people, brands, and users alike deserve good copy. Now, the last time that we saw each other in the context of this series, we looked at an empty state and fixed it. And today, we're going to do the same, but we're looking at an empty state that has a different problem. A problem that you will find a lot out there in the wild. And we will do our best to understand the nature of that problem. And of course, we will fix it together. So what are we dealing with today? Unfortunately, this right here is a screenshot that I took from an online shop, but I can't really recall where it comes from, but that shouldn't be a problem for today. We can still work with it, and this piece of copy will definitely teach us an important lesson today. So as you can see, as I said, it's an empty state of a shopping bag. It fulfills the two functions that an empty state should fulfill, which are number one, tell the user that this space right here is usually filled, but that it's empty now. And number two, tell the user how this space is filled. Both functions are definitely fulfilled in a very minimalistic way. It's pretty much the bare minimum that we're seeing here, but that's not what's wrong with this piece of copy. And since this is a practice video, I want you to pause this video right now, take a moment, look at this and pinpoint what's wrong with it. So take that second and then come back. So as already mentioned, this is the bare minimum of what you should do with UX writing, but that's not even the problem. The problem is what happens below that empty state text element. It's in the menu that is shown in the lower part of the screen. So let's for a moment focus on this. Here we see my profile with the possessive pronoun of my. We see orders without a pronoun. We see your saves. We see account, again, without any pronoun. And we weirdly have sign out Katharina, which is kind of a third person perspective. Like, I'm not signing out myself. I'm not just signing out, but I'm signing out Katharina. Now, friends, if this is not a textbook example of inconsistency, I don't know what is. And as I said, this is something we see a lot in practice out in the wild. Sometimes it's done intentionally, sometimes not so intentionally. So let's take a moment and break this down. And let's first discuss these pronouns a little. The my versus you problem. As this example right here shows, we can use both versions. We can use my as a possessive pronoun, and we can use your as a possessive pronoun. Both can be a good choice, but you should not mix them within the same text element, which is definitely done here. Some brands do that, and sometimes they have an explanation for that, like it's your order because you took action, but it's my profile because it's personal. Please always keep in mind that to your users, these explanations are not available, okay? They're in your head and your head only. And unless the user is willing to sit down and try to interpret your choices of pronouns, this will just look chaotic to them. So my recommendation is keep it simple, keep it clean, and keep it consistent. But since this is a practice video, how do you keep this simple and clean and consistent. What would you choose? My, your, or would you leave out the pronouns entirely? Please press pause right here again. Think about that, make a decision, and rewrite this piece for yourself. Without doing any research, try to come to a conclusion for yourself based on your thoughts, your logic. And when you're done with that, we'll see each other again. So let's get to the heart of this. As I said, all three versions are definitely possible. My, you, and no pronouns at all. And in order to make a decision, we first need to understand the nuances of the different solutions here. So let's do that. And there are two people who have done interesting research on this issue, Vitaly Friedman and John Saito. And I will also link their work in the description box below for further reading. But here is what they're saying summarized. They say that the pronoun my frames the product as the user's tool. So this pronoun suggests ownership, control, personalization, customization. It's basically what the user gets out of the interaction with the product, the result of the interaction with the product. For example, the product might offer several TV shows that I can watch, and I put a list together of my favorite shows. Then I made that list. This is my list, my personal lists with my saved items. This is why using the pronoun my feels most natural when we use it in the context of my account, my settings, my drafts, my favorite, and so on. Because these are usually the areas of an app that we can customize as a user. And of course, this also signals the user, hey, this is the area in which you have power and control. Your, on the other hand, frames the product, the app basically, as speaking to the user. And we use it in situations when the interface addresses the user directly, almost like an assistant who's currently guiding someone through a task. And that is especially the case when the writing tries to engage the user, tries to get the user to perform an action. And that is why we often see that in contexts of error messages, for example, where the user needs to take action in order to move on. Or we see that a lot in instructions, like tell us your preferences, but also fill your list with your favorite shows. So we're basically talking about the same list, but it's not filled yet, not customized yet. So the product tries to get us to take action. And that's also why there are often some confusions about that, because we can talk about the same things using your and using my in different contexts and especially in different text elements. And with that said, we should never, ever mix the two in the same text element. And by text element, I don't mean screen, okay? I mean text element. And screens can have multiple text elements. And pronouns don't need to be the same among different text elements, but they need to be the same within text elements. So what might happen is you might see an empty space saying your bag is empty, plan your next order. And then in the sidebar menu, in the same screen, there might be a label saying my previous orders. Same screen, different text elements, okay? That's important to understand. Now, there is also the option to not use any pronouns at all. That's our third solution here. And that's okay too. Sometimes that even gives more clarity, but sometimes not using pronouns at all can feel a little unnatural and also a little too technical. It may be even a little lazy because it seems like we don't want to make a definite decision. So this needs to be balanced out very carefully. And of course, these kinds of decisions also need to be made in alignment with your brand voice. So for example, if you have a very personal, very empathetic brand voice, simply leaving out all pronouns is probably not a good choice. But if you work with a very technical brand voice anyway, it might just be fine. So with that knowledge, would you now correct your decisions or the rewriting that you just did? If so, you can do that now. Press pause again, do so, rewrite it again, and press play again when you're done. And then we will discuss a possible solution. So with what we've just learned about pronouns, how would I change this? How would I approach this? Well, we can see that at the bottom it says sign out Katharina, which means that I am currently signed in and I see a lot of things that I did, the items that I saved, the items I ordered, etc. So this is what I put there. This is the result of me using the product as a tool. And so I personally would switch it all to my, especially my saves and my orders, because those are what I made. And also including the last point here, which now says sign out Katharina, I will change that as well, which also gives this piece of text a more natural tone. Now, when we do that, what we see here now is something that I call the Amazon problem. Why the Amazon problem? Because their drop-down menus often look like this. This is the German version, and when you translate it literally into English, which is done automatically, it ends up looking like this. And here you can see that putting a pronoun in front of every list item makes it look super repetitive. And that's a personal piece of advice that I like to give writers in general. If you find yourself repeating a word in one text element over and over again, that's probably a sign that it is redundant, simply because it seems to be the common denominator of all items. And that is also the case for me in our interface right here. So saying my 5 times adds unnecessary cognitive load to the user experience, and therefore I would stick with my profile and clean up the rest, which indicates that the pronoun in the header is the common denominator of everything that follows. And that means that we end up with this. And now you might ask yourself, okay, got it, but this is only part of the screen, right? Like in the upper part, we had your bag is empty, and that sounds about right. And now in the lower part, we use my. Is that a problem? No, this is not a problem, because as I said earlier, here we have 2 different text elements. The upper part is an empty space where we encourage the user to interact with the product, and the lower part is a locked in settings area. It's not very ideal that these 2 text elements appear in one viewport, but here we're looking at it from a logical perspective, a communications perspective, and at the function of each text element. And that means that the upper part is conversational, engaging, and it encourages user interaction, and the lower part is about the things that the user has ownership over, can customize, can adjust to their needs. It's their personal private space. Nothing where the product can, interfere, so to say. So that's definitely my area. Now, one quick last note here, because I always want to encourage you to work with frameworks. From the previous part of the series, you might remember the UX writing quality criteria that I told you we should use to analyze, evaluate, and rewrite UX copy systematically. Now, if we wanted to categorize this problem with the help of this framework, what do you think? Where should it be categorized? Again, you can press pause and press play again when you think you found an answer to that question. Now, I know this was a little tricky because it is kind of difficult to see where the root cause of this problem actually lies, but the root cause and the solution will be in the very same place. Because if we wanted to categorize this problem with the help of this framework, we can say it's a brand problem. Why, you might ask? Well, because this quality criterion covers everything we would define in a style guide. And in a style guide, we also need to involve guidelines that ensure consistency. And when to choose your and when to choose mine as a pronoun is a consistency issue. It's a matter of consistency. So it should be defined somewhere. And our voice and tone style guide is definitely the right place for this. So This was the last note that I had on the issue. Other than that, we're good to go. I hope it was a little fun to you. I hope it was helpful to you. And as always, if you like, feel free to share your own draft in the comments, or your thoughts or your questions, whatever is on your mind. Also, make sure to check out writewithdrkat.com for more UX writing education. Make sure you sign up to my newsletter, the UX Writing Memo, so that you don't miss out on a thing. Link is also in the description box below. And apart from that, as always, there's nothing left to say for me except keep on writing, enjoy the process, and I hope to see you sometime soon.